Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Romancing Grenada Caricom Pitimatnik. Once again, we're with another track and field legend, a legend of his time, and currently, even now, actually, because he's still the record holder of the OECS long jump. Today, we're on the panel. On the panel, we have Shermy and Louis Balfour, Over Lewis, Andris Mark, who is also a S.A.A.S. athlete on the female side, so it's good to have the ladies in. Cipriani, who also did some work went to S.A.A.S. and ended up working with Eugene at one time as police. Our special guest today is Eugene Licorish, and I would say his co-guest is Andris Alexander Mark. Everybody, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Good afternoon.
Good night.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
It is night where you are, Cipriani.
A little bit.
It's a very Grenadian thing, you know, once it gets a little dark, we start saying good night. But it's right here. Eugene is an athlete maybe every Grenadian's known or heard of. He's went from all the way from, I would say, based on stories I know, you said you started around 11. So you went from a no school represented all the way up to representing Grenada in the Olympics. That's quite a ladder to climb. I want to start though by asking Andris to tell us a little bit, especially about inside S.A.A.S. and what was going on with the ladies and Intercol and so on. Andris, what do you have to tell us about school and the boys, because the boys get more recognition. I personally couldn't think of a lady until Eugene showed me a picture and we started seeing women. So tell me a little bit about the ladies' side of S.A.A.S. and then we can talk about the men.
Well, as always, the men always get more recognition than the ladies when it comes to sports. And the S.A.A.S. Intercol team always had quite a few ladies on there. We had one athlete who was an all-rounder called O.E.C.S.
We have a picture.
Yes.
The women. Go ahead, sorry.
Yes, Shirley was one of our top athletes when it comes to high jump, long jump, and track and field. She plays in all of them all the time. Mm-hmm. For me, I was just track and field, just strictly track and field. And I remember my last year in S.A.A.S., I ran the 800 for the very first time, because I never ran I always used to do sprints. And I broke the record.
Wow.
Yeah, because I tried to, I had one teammate called Mavis Duncan. She was also in Pigger House with me. And I told her we're going to come first and second in that race.
Right.
From Sobeys, and I said, Pigger going to get first and second place. Because she always run long distance, not me. So I said, I'll keep up with you. But for some reason, I end up winning the race and breaking the record.
Wow.
But S.A.A.S. had a few good female athletes like Maria Moore. Maria Moore was always good at track and also at high jump, not long jump, but high jump and track. So we had quite a few. And I remember when we used to go to Intercol and the songs they used to play and the songs they used to have for S.A.A.S. When we go Intercol, when we in St. Andrews, it's S.A.A.S. against everybody else. But when we go in Tongue, it's St. Andrews against everybody else. Whether you're Convent, whether you're GSS, it was St. Andrews against St. George's and everybody else.
Right.
So it was a good experience. I still love track and field today. I mean, back then I was 110 pounds. I could have run back then. Right now I can't go up some stairs.
Well, I should say that.
Sorry?
Yes. Hi, good afternoon, Andris. Long time. Everything's good.
Hi,
How's the farm? Yeah, well, I remember those like you. I remember Iva from the Hermitage. Used to do the long distance. Iva Joseph, she was pretty good too.
And Gail Francis. Was good at long distance also.
Long distance, Deborah. She's also Deborah. Deborah Brown now. She's Deborah Brown now. She's, I forget her name. Can't remember the first name. Deborah. She's the long distance slim.
Is she one of the pictures that you sent?
Yeah, she's in one of the pictures at the extreme.
Her name was Deborah Francis.
Reverend Francis. Yeah.
That's what I told Shirley and Karen. I said that sure. I could remember. I could see her face
And
right
Karen
now.
used to do the
And I
good
think
spring.
her name was Deborah. I wasn't sure. So
Yeah, Mario Mo, pretty good too. She win all the high jumps.
yeah, Maria Moore was really good. Yeah, and we also had a few athletes. There wasn't like intercal stuff, but when it comes to the relay, they were really good at the relay and stuff. Oh, look at all
Well,
this.
so
Okay, so I
so
am on the page with the ladies. So this is Deborah in the end?
this is Deborah.
Yeah, they have to be Deborah. Yeah, I remember
Then
her.
I think that should be Gail and the middle then Shirley.
Isn't that Aretha from
Yeah, Aretha. Yeah.
Yes.
Aretha Kalimo.
Eugene told me their names and I have it here. So for the ladies, we have the first lady here is Shirley.
Oh, wow.
The second lady is Andris, who's with us.
She was 110 pounds.
The third lady is Arita Kalimo, and the lady on the end is Deborah.
Ram.
Right.
Wow.
Right. So
But-
I'll stop sharing a little. All right. Oh,
And that was that as one of the SAASS Day sports or?
Sorry. We have Edlin's coming on now. She's Magrate.
Okay, no, that's me. I'm
That's you.
I'm getting on the computer so I can see everybody.
Okay.
Let me get up the phone. Hold on. Let me get up this phone here now.
Okay. So Andris, you were known in school as Andris Alexander, but your proper name is Magrate Alexander.
Well, tell me about it.
He's also known as Andris, always known as Andris.
Also known as Andris, or more popularly known as Andris. And
Andris.
Andris, you told me a story about Jacinta Bartholomew. And you're muted.
I guess she's trying to get to reconnect. She's on, but her picture's not on. So.
I'll just share a picture, Eugene, because you sent me a picture of the S.A.A.S ladies, and it's the chair in the gallery, the women chair.
Waving gallery.
Yeah, the waving gallery, and in there is somebody who we know well, Cipriani, and I'm gonna share the screen first. I often forget to share the screen first. I always pull up the picture and then get the screen. Oh, good God, what have I done?
You're sharing your screen now.
I am. So in here,
okay.
You guys recognize this lady, Shamin?
No.
Oh,
I can
Miss Robinson from Jeanette.
Jenny, you recognize her?
There's Jean and there's Jackie.
This is Jackie?
Jackie's in the middle. And Jeanette is the lady on top.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Okay, now I can see it. Now I can see it.
And we have another picture, if I can find it, with Pamela George, who I never knew was an athlete of S.A.A.S as well.
Was the Bonjour sister?
You're muted if you are.
Well, most of the George family actually played a part in the team, from Devon, the brother, you know, the sisters. They were always good.
Right. All right. So I think Andris would come back later on. I don't know if she recognized that she's muted, or maybe she's having problems getting back on. So Eugene, I want to welcome you. Actually, I don't know if I did that officially. And thank you for being here. Cipriani is gonna tell us a little bit. You and Cipriani are friends, and I wanted Jerry Hopkins should be coming on soon, because Jerry Hopkins can start the story from the start for us. What I've learned so far is you started school in Methodist, but you were a Catholic acolyte. And I'm why are you going
At,
in Methodist and performing the acolyte duties in the RC church? So why
at
were
those time, at that time in school, you know, it wasn't a matter of choice. It's where the parents sent you. It wasn't like you're staunch Catholic and you have to go to the RC school. And at that time, it was the best school, like with discipline, with Mr. Roberts there. You know, your parents will definitely at those time would send you to that location.
oh, because of Mr. Robbo.
The discipline was most important.
Right. So you finished. Sorry, Andres, I'll come back to you in a little. Let me just bring. I'm coming up to speed with Eugene to S.A.A.S. So when we reach the S.A.A.S, I'll switch back. So Eugene, then you're in Methodist. You went on to. You said you started just jumping around in the park. You weren't an organized athlete. Your sisters were, but you weren't. Were you? Did you have any directions towards sports or athleticism at that time?
No, I was not even thinking of sports or even being an athlete. It was just about it. You come to the park, you see your cricket is playing, you play. You know, you run away, you go, you take a jump, you run around, and you go home. There was never like I want to be an athlete.
Although you were in Grenville where they already had lots of athletes, so tricks in them
Well,
were you already.
but that's the good part of it is that you're among them and they know they were the guys who had the know-how, and it was good to learn from them, and you accept everything that they do. You look at the things that they do, you learn, and then you try to improve on it most of all.
That's good. So then you went up now in high school, you're gone to Lawanga College. I don't know how many people remembers Lawanga College.
Oh yeah, that's a school that was right on top of the hill. They were.
Yeah. And in Lawanga College, you were an athlete, and you gave me a story about you organizing a football team.
Well, it wasn't only me. It was not only generally me. It was like there was this guy Victor John, best his soul, he has died now. Scoonty. He was at that time, you know, very interested. His brothers, they were all good football players at that time. And the school, we probably had like 8 guys, but we had a football team. So what we used to do now is that, you know, to fill a team when we go into play another school, we used to lend some guys in the streets in Grenville to fill the other 3 spaces, you know, give them the uniform so that at least we could get to play. And among the 8 guys in the school, probably 5 was at least athletes.
So you brought in some hired guns.
Well, because there were always guys who were willing. They don't play just for the winning, just for an opportunity to play the game. So it wasn't a matter of like we're cheating. It was like, okay, my friend wants to play, he gets a uniform.
Right.
we weren't even going to win either. We just wanted to be represented.
Right. But that is a great start and very ingenious, because I don't know of anybody who would have thought of that right away. Well, there's some guys out there that wants to play, so let's form a team and represent the school.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about it. You get to realize the same thing you were doing when you were kids. It practically is similar to what you're doing to advance now, because the idea is that you have to get creative when stuff gets tough.
Right. I saw Margaret's husband.
Yeah, Mr. Mark.
He was also a S.A.A.S athlete, and I heard he's very active still. Hello, Mr. Mark.
Yo.
You're looking down on us. Can you kneel down a little so we can see?
What's up?
Hi, good afternoon.
Welcome.
Eugene, these 3 ladies here, and Eugene. I can see Eugene because my phone, yeah.
Okay, and we have Cipriani as well, whom you might know.
He just been nosy.
Well, we'd like he was a S.A.A.S athlete as well. What is his name?
Bernard Mark.
Do any of you remember Bernard Mark?
He was in a higher
I can't
form
see
than
the
us.
face.
From Munich?
Yes.
From Munich? Okay, yeah, I remember you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You remember?
That's Cipriani, what's up? Yeah.
Yeah, from Munich, yeah.
If you remember Mr. Dodd from Magrate College, then you remember me.
Mr. Dog?
Yeah.
For Magrate
Nah, I
College.
remember you from Munich,
I
man.
say, I thought you looked as
Yeah.
Mr. Dog. I don't know.
SAS, last year, my last year in SAS, go check on that, you'll see.
What year is that?
I don't remember, 81 maybe?
81?
I don't know, yeah, maybe 81. I'm not sure. Yeah,
I send you the link so you could join in,
yeah. And because I started out with Lando, and then Eugene came up later on.
Okay.
I mean, because Lando
So
and this
you
guy.
were you were with Tricks and Dylan and
Yes, Lando, this guy from GBSS Maitland. They used to be
yeah.
going at it, man. You know, that was my
Jericho
day.
and those guys in there.
You
All my
were,
5 years in SAS Intercol, you know what I mean? So
you were there during the hard times. You had to
Yeah,
fight for
yeah.
everything.
I started up in
Well,
Simon, you know? Yeah.
So you
well,
were,
you guys are referred to as the originals, right?
Yes. Glidon, Trevor Modest, Trevor was all the feeling.
Trevor, yeah.
You know what I mean?
You go too. You go too. That I mean, guided too.
you Butu?
Trevor George.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Devon.
This is
From
from here.
Ladig, yeah.
You
Right.
go to the Devon George.
Devon George,
Oh, okay.
yeah, Devon.
Okay.
Well, Cipriani is also from Ladig. But Cipriani, were you an athlete?
No, I was a cheerleader.
Oh, nice.
Still the cheerleader.
We need cheerleaders. I'm sure the athletes would agree with us how much spirit and energy the cheerleaders
Yeah,
put.
yeah.
Well, he
Go
was good.
Eugene, go Eugene, you know.
Oh,
Okay,
you
That was
yeah.
You remember in them days in charge when you're Intercol and you're running, and the police you just bouncing and everybody calling your name, man.
Yeah.
well,
and
And
get
then you couldn't stop, you know what I mean?
yes.
You know them sauce,
it,
you know, yeah.
basically when you're down there on the field, all you're hearing is just the screaming and the energy is just good enough for you to continue.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, somebody else you guys missing out, Peter Bain. This guy, Peter was
Yeah,
bad.
Peter Bain used to do the javelin.
High
The
jump,
javelin, yeah. Mhm.
javelin. As big as he was, this man take 3 steps, man, and jumping over it. I mean,
Yeah, but
he was.
as with reference to guys who you guys will be forgetting, you have to remember there were guys like Dylan Felix,
Mhm.
used to do the
For
400,
the younger ones?
the
Yeah.
younger one, Dylan.
Yes.
He was pretty
Yeah.
good at those times, you
And
know.
Dylan went all the way to the Olympics as well.
Yep.
Also went to the Olympics. There were the
Yes.
guys that have basically been there. You know, that's why I always stress that it's not so surrounded like one person. It's always a team effort.
Yes.
Mhm.
The
And I must,
individuality is great, but you know, when you put it as a collective, it has a better meaning
mhm,
than you know the individual. We all, because as Cipriani has mentioned, it is also from the spectators, the energy from the crowd, the families, your mom, your uncle, your sisters, your brothers, your cousins, everyone that you meet on the street. You know, when that part of this is the sports season, everyone is walking with their head high and you have to be there to always represent.
mhm.
I mean,
So that's why today we could talk about it with pride
Right.
and
Yeah.
diligence
Dignity.
that we had achieved something.
You know, I played cricket. I played a lot of cricket too. And I remember playing cricket for my club team, you know, and I would go all over the place play cricket. And people in Grenada, they always call you by your last name. You know what I mean? And you go and some little kid, Mark, you know? And you have no idea who this kid is because they know you from sports, from running, from because
Yeah.
you don't see anybody, you know what I mean? You don't know who they are. But that used to be very interesting, you know, when you go out to play cricket or football or whatever it is, and kids come up to you, oh, you know.
You're a role model somehow.
But
I just
but
want to
you had no
recognize
idea.
we have Jerry Hopkins here and he's muted. So sorry, Mr. Mark. Just want to recognize Jerry, but go ahead.
Yeah, I'm saying. I mean, that was unique, you know. That was kind of unique to be all there. And, you know, you do that stuff and you don't know. I have a friend who is in Trinidad. He has a brother.
We've lost you.
Okay.
I have to leave, but before I leave, I wanted to say to Eugene, the name I've heard, like Livingston, you know, listening to sports and stuff on the radio. But I went to school with one of his sisters. So when Mark spoke about kids, they don't quite know you, but your name sort of lived on, right? They just kind of heard the name Mark, Mark the cricketer, Mark the sport. So even if I didn't quite know Eugene that way, I knew his sister. Can't remember.
Betienne.
No, not Betienne.
Betienne.
No. June.
June. Oh, okay.
So June was in a higher grade, but she could have run too. So she was like your prodigy kind of. So we kind of knew she was Eugene Licorish's sister, even if we never really knew Eugene, right? So we expected her to run fast. It was just something. Because she was a Licorish. So good for you. But anyway,
Thanks.
nice to meet you guys. Sorry, I have to go. And
thank you for being.
Join back once I'm finished.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Yes, Mr. Jerry Hopkin.
Hello, good afternoon to everyone. I apologize that I'm only joining you now. I was at another meeting that went beyond the set end time, but I'm happy to be here. I'm honored, in fact, to be sharing a Zoom with the awesome athlete in the person of Eugene Licorish, a brother that I've always said is very much under-recognized for the contributions that he has made for sports in Grenada and representing Grenada at every level, as far as the Olympics. And so it's a pleasure to be on here. Eugene, pleasant good evening to you, and to all of the others on the Zoom. A pleasant good evening to every one of you.
Good afternoon, Jerry. Mr. Hopkins, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing fine. I'm doing just a little bit. I've been doing quite a bit lately because, as you guys may know, I'm also running for city council here in New York City and in the 48th Councilmanic District. So that has been keeping me busy along with everything else that I'm involved with here in New York. So, but it's good to be here. And this moment is yours and all the others, the Livingstons, the Godfreys, all the other names you guys have been calling in this edition and in the earlier edition of this special. By the way, Cindy, Ms. Walcott, and whoever else is responsible for this with you, I want to commend you on doing this, having this special feature. It's something that we need because we do need to give recognition to those who paved the way, those who went before, and those who are still around to talk about what they did and how they did it. And that's very important so that we can pass on to the younger generation, the ones who are coming up, the kind of discipline and application that folks like Eugene and Livingston Nelson and the several other athletes who have gone on unrecognized before Kirani, and the ones who came in the generations before, and even the ones before Eugene, you know, the peers and the others who did, you know, made awesome accomplishments. We have to recognize them. So this year that you are doing, guys, this exercise is definitely significant, meaningful, and we need more of it. And we need to pressure the authorities, not just in Grenada, but throughout the Caribbean, but especially in Grenada, to put in place the appropriate kind of recognition for individuals such as Eugene.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate it. And on the topic of the Supriani, I remember in the afternoon, like one of my routine on training is to run from home up to Ladig every evening, just strictly hill from since the start from the school. It used to be, I used to meet Toad and the guys on the hill every evening.
So I want to share something, Eugene, in regards to what you just mentioned. So, well, you know how it is. We on the bus, we see you. You are a very quiet looking personality, and we get excited. Yes. And we get excited seeing you. We get excited seeing you, and you were such a quiet personality from what we could have seen. And you know, you walk sneakily on your toes passing by. We just say, oh my gosh, that was Eugene passing there. So cool. And it just felt as if you were untouchable. We couldn't talk to you because you were an athlete and you were well known. And so, you know, simple girls, you know, and one day my sister and I, Cindy, we were walking on our way up just past Monks and Ovens Gap, just as we ascended what we call that hill where Mr. St. Louis lives there.
High Hill.
High jump, yes. And just as we were before, below the by Bell's Gap there, you were coming up and we turned around, we were like shocked to see you. And my sister Cindy said, because I would not have ever thought we could talk to you. And you said, what are you doing up here? And you stopped and you started talking to you. You say, well, I run the hills every day because it's good for building your stamina. And I was just dumbfounded. I couldn't say a word because I didn't think you were going to talk to us. I just looked at you. And in my head, I was thinking all things I can ask you, but was so afraid. Even if you were so dumb to it and speaking to her about form and how she asked you at that time, why is it you're able to have an advantage every time? And you say you somehow psychologically link your mind to the gun. And you say somehow you're able to leave off just as the gun goes. So you say it's a state of mental preparedness and focus so deeply. And I'm hearing all this and I'm trying in my head to be an athlete, but was so enamored by the fact that you were talking to us. And I thought it was so humbling that you were sharing tips and taking the dig route and stopping your routine just to talk to us and share with us. We felt that honestly still, that was true greatness, that you were able to stop your routine. You weren't too important to stop and talk to two girls from Montrose School.
Well, I would say thanks, and I do appreciate the thought and the well-being. And this, as I always thought, it was always like running in the afternoon is like always meeting. It's like meeting out for my friends. And that same part of developing that technique, that was to help me with that thing. There was one guy, Bernard James, known as Shaka. He's a police right now. And he was the first one that introduced me to the fact that the little technicalities in the race. For instance, because if you have to go, you have to put your strongest foot forward. So the timing, like, we were taught in school, you just go down on your mark, say it, and then you try to leave out with a gun. But the basic technique in it is, for instance, which is the strongest foot that you should push out from, which one you should know the little technique to take out the point something of the second to improve yourself. And those were stuff that you learned throughout the time. And, thanks to Shaka, and then my running partner at the time was Roderick Taylor. It was him, Shaka, and I used to be running up the hill through Ladig, down there, come down through Subies almost every afternoon. I used to be hang out, run, then still go to the park and do our basic training. So the idea of running that is like you also have to like doing it. If it's a throw, it would be nice.
Well, my question is because I used to run. I mean, not anything I recognize. How do you? Because in my mind, a sprinter would not do distance to develop. I just think you'll just be running, doing a few 100 meters along the park. How did it come to you that you should do that distance? And Grenada
repetition is also is good, but the more you run, the stronger you become. For instance, if you're intending specializing in one subject, the best way of mastering it is to master all the others that surround it. So you have to run, you have to be able to like to run to master what you're going to, because you don't want to go to and then it's like, oh man, by the time I get down there, I would feel tired. Like Livingston always remember that race. We had a race that we were running in school, and he didn't want to go forward first because by the time the end, we all would get tired. And then I didn't want to go by the time the end of the race, and he didn't want to lose. So we actually jogged the first part of the race and ran the last 20 meters. It was like a dash. The race was just the last few things. And then, then the headmaster Crazy called us and was like, you guys are fools. You wouldn't die. You lived for all those years. You wouldn't die in 14 seconds. Run. So, those are small topics that you get, and then they're improving, and then you keep push yourself every time. So it gets tough now. Someone you meet, not only that, you would meet people on the street, guys who are parents of other people. That there's one son, Mr. Ben, always used to work in the cinema. Ben always used to stop and give me advice. Other people on the street would stop and, don't do this. I remember when I used to always playing football, my uncle always tell me, stop running with your tongue outside your mouth. If someone knock you, he's gonna cut you. And in track and field, you want your tongue to be out because you want to take in as much. So the difference.
That was something you said too about breathing. You say you breathe through, what is it? Was it your mouth or to your nostril? I can't remember. You were telling
You
about
breathe in
breathing
and you breathe out. So your breathing has to coordinate with your body. So the more
with your
you're able to supply the oxygen, the more stronger you become,
and power your muscles. You just
And
mentioned something that
repetition.
yeah, that's a life lesson. You said if you want to master something, you have to be able to do all the areas, or at least be proficient enough in all the areas surrounding it. And that's, I think, is a very powerful life lesson. So you want to
Yeah,
be not just in sports. It'd be good for example, if you want to be a cricketer, don't just do cricket. You have to throw, you have to run. So all the other disciplines that surround cricketing. So that, I think, is a life lesson that maybe somebody listening could learn. Not just focus on what you're doing, but the other associated to help develop the art or the skill.
yeah.
Yeah,
With the cricketer, you have to do the math, you have to do the calculation,
yeah.
the speed of the ball, the direction. And I was to talk about that. And it's just as I grew up recently, not recently, I grew up, I was playing cricket later on. We were playing cricket in school, and the guy was bowling the ball, and I was hitting the ball like, to where I wanted to go. So, but it wasn't going. I was just hitting it hard, and it was just rolling. And then Mr. Donald told me that I have to direct the ball to where it's going, so that I will be able to carry it along. And then you get to realize that's the grace is when a guy bowl the ball. You just direct it, you place it, help the ball to continue faster. But I was changing the direction, and it was like stopping right in front of me. And I was like, now what's he telling me? I'm hitting the ball, And now as you grow up, you get to realize, oh no, the dude was right all the while.
So now we talk a little bit about cricket. So I'll go back to Mr. Mark, who said SAS, because we have a picture with Eugene, you have a picture on your Facebook. I'm not sure I can share it here, with the big SAS team, the whole team.
The cricket team.
You had your cricketers, your footballers, and your track and field stars. Mr. Mark was before you, and I know by the time you guys came, the school was organized into a team. Mr. Mark, how was it? Were you guys that organized before, or were you just individual athletes who represented the school?
For cricket?
For anything. No, well, cricket, you're in a team, but I mean for track and field or
We were organized. We were organized. When I started off in Simon, we, Intercol, we just go down to Intercol and run. After like a year or two, before Intercol, we started going down to Queen's Park and train at Queen's Park to get kind of used to the environment. Wow. So yeah, we were organized. Yeah, I would say so. At that point, anyway. In the very beginning,
as I would mention, every year there will be a learning process, because if I can remember around that time, I was not part of the SAS team at that time, but there were guys who goatee, and the guys who had a little bit of the know-how would come around and would give their input, and everyone would take from it. So that's always say it's always a learning process. You learn from this one, you read on the book, Trevor would come up with an idea, Patrick would come up with an idea, Lando will come up with someone, Guydan will come up with, everyone in ideas was valid.
So you didn't meet Mr. Mark in school?
No, I didn't. I went to. No, I didn't meet Mr. Marker. When I went to school, I was late.
Okay.
Remember, I went from Convent to SAS.
Right. When he came to SAS, I was on the other end, and by that time I started doing like the 800 meters and stuff like that. And I remember him. I remember him running the 100 and stuff like that. But my thing was the 800. That was my race. 8 4 whatever it is.
The big longer races.
And I was there with Livingston a little bit earlier. We were laying house. Me, Livingston, and guy was laying house. So I remember Livingston. Everything about Livingston. Back then. But Eugene came in.
You guys were. When I came in, I came in the Form 3 or Form 4, so I was late in the game.
Yeah.
So Andris, from the women's perspective, the men are that organized. Were the women very organized as well?
I think we were more organized when it comes to the Intercol team. But like in the individual house race among the different houses, we weren't, because I hated to train. I never train, except when it was for the Intercol team and we all trained together as a team. But when it comes to like house sports, I never train. We will leave to go down in progress in progress back to train, but I never really.
But I want to ask Eugene something, right? There was. I remember we going down to Queens Park and train one time for get ready for the car. I don't know if you remember. I don't know if he was there. There was this girl from Hermitage, Lily Mark. Lily was the baddest thing we had.
Yeah. Mm.
Okay,
What's her
Lily
name?
and a few other girls, they went out into town, didn't get permission. Cressy banned her. She could not take part in the car. That's the kind of guy Cressy was, you know what I mean? Like, you were not bigger than the team. You know what I mean? Because she was a star for the women. You know what I mean? And she went out into town, didn't ask nobody. She could not take part in the car.
She was a star in his time, not my time.
It was your time.
Not my time.
Lily was a girl. Lily was a, you know. Lily was a, I don't know if Eugene, do you remember her? Eugene?
I can very vividly. Maybe if I see a photo, I will get.
I remember Lily Mac, but she was mostly long distance too. Anyway.
No. Lily was 100, 200.
Oh, okay. Well, I never ran against Lily. I never ran against Lily.
So, Brianna, you remember that?
Yeah, I know Lily Mac. She had a sister too. Yeah,
from Stephen Hermitage.
I remember Lily Mac too. I remember her.
I remember Lily Mac.
Lily Mark from Hermitage. Wow.
Yeah.
But there is, I mean, if we go through the line, there's so many people have made input, and I won't really say it's small because every input was is good. So along the way, there were athletes who just pop up for a year, then disappear. Their family moved away, or they moved away, and then it's like remember the guy Wagley. He used to be when he was a sub junior. He used to live by the bay down there.
I remember him. Waterley. I remember his last name.
Waterley. Yeah. And those guys were like in those guys. Yes.
I remember
those guys. Those are guys who individually at the time made their mark, and those are guys when you go to the Intercol, you could depend on. Okay, we get 10 points from him. We get 3 from this guy. So everyone goes down there in the morning and okay, my 3 points has to count. My 10 points has to count. So at the end of the day, you know how much you have to bring in.
Yeah, so relays were 10 points at that time.
10 points, yeah. So you're 3 points and you're 5 points in 100. So at the end of the day, if you have 5 events, you're responsible for 20 points.
So I have to tell a little story because Eugene, too, I don't know how the S.A.A.S athletes feel, but we outside, or the S.A.A.S school felt, we outside looking at you and Livingston, you were like Carl Lewis and Ben Johnson. You physique, and then your style in running. And I think maybe you tried to emulate Carl Lewis in your running. And you were the first person, Mr. Mark can tell us different, I ever saw with running spikes. And when you came to Montrose, I remember you lent your spikes to a guy named David James, who he wasn't really used to that because we ran bare feet. And you guys were showing off in a way, I think, but you came up to Montrose and you were spiked up and, dressed up for the track day. And you were just strutting around. You had lots of muscles and you lent your spikes to this guy, which made a fool out of himself. But how did you get the spikes? Like, what did the idea come up?
Well, at those times, spikes and stuff was basically expensive. So you would see a spike. I remember my early one with the leather one, we made it. It's like, you put your nails through and you cover it up. So you had your 5 holes and your 6 holes accordingly. Then you use it as far as you use it as far as time goes. You make your own spikes.
Oh.
I mean, it wasn't beautiful. It wasn't looking, you got times it would even rip you,
But that was ingenious, the fact that you wanted to compete at that level.
That's what I'm telling you. The idea was always to be innovative. We learned from being natural. As I said, when you meet Livingston and you meet Trevor and those guys, we don't have technology. Those guys learn from experience, things that they do. So, when you want a spike, you make it. Back in the day, you want a nice shot, you make it. You want a nice pants, you go by the tailor man and you sew it. You tell him exactly what you want. You go by Darby and you say, Darby, I need my pants like this. That's what you get.
Talking about spikes, I remember when I had to run when I ran the 800 and broke that record, I was chosen to represent Grenada in the Bahamas along with Shamin Hood. And we had to train in Grenville one Saturday, and I got to the park and for training to go to the Bahamas. And when we reached halfway, I stopped. And the reason why I stopped, I figured I'm not going to the Bahamas and run without spikes. Because I never run with spikes before, and I'm not going to try now when I'm going to compete somewhere else. So I stopped, so I wouldn't go to the Bahamas, which was foolish back then. But at the time, I was like, I've never run with spikes before. I'm not going to go and run with spikes now. I don't have a spikes. And I'm not going to go and run. I'm the only person without a spikes. So I stopped halfway and let Charmaine Hood go. So she went to the Bahamas instead.
I think I see her name there. She might still, there's a Hood. I wasn't paying attention to which Hood.
But
Yeah.
Charmaine Hood, no, she was from Convent in town.
St. George's, yes.
Yeah.
Can I ask
St.
a
George's,
question though to Andris and Eugene? Were you supposed to equip yourself with spikes and so when you were going to compete or represent Grenada outside of Grenada?
Yeah, you have to get your own. Only thing they would supply is your uniform. Yeah. The stuff like the spikes, basically, it comes automatically. Because you had to supply those. Remember, it was we were looking at like we were starting up from nothing. So then you weren't actually looking for the government to buy your spike. You know, you get your own. You know, you always try to look for what you want. You weren't like looking for the to give you anything.
Right. It's because you wanted to do it so badly. You
so
the
bad.
drive
So
to
you
do,
go
so
get
you
your
were willing to do
uniform,
it.
you get your spike. When the tights come out, you want to go, you make your tights. You get. Because remember the first tights I had was a Barbadian guy who made it. We went to a games, a police games in Barbados, and he was like, okay. So we make tights and stuff. I was like, okay, take my measurements. I give you the money. Next day, he bought my tights. So that's how you get your first stuff, you know.
I'm trying to
different now though. It may be that they provide that now. I'm not sure.
Well, hopefully they would. I mean, like now the improvements that they should made. Oh, come on, we went to the Olympics. We have Kirani and they should at least help, you know, in that production.
But could I ask though, is there a lesson here you want to well, do you think then the athlete now who may have those things prepared for them? Because I'm almost certain that most Grenadian athletes, do you think the drive for success for you is a little bit different for them now, knowing that you had to equip yourself with so many things? It's like you had to really represent them because I have to get my own spikes, I have to get my own pants. So I really have to go because I'm doing this not merely for Grenada, but for me as well. Do you have a big...
At that time, that was our motivation, you know. Now the kids have a different motivation. Right now, they have the technology already there. You have a stadium, you have a good spike, and you have good coaching. So your idea is just have to develop, okay, let me concentrate on
running,
giving that energy, running. So that's why, you know, we moved from the champion being from 10 seconds to 9 something. And we want, you know, remember in our days, 10 seconds was like immaculate.
Yes.
You do a 10-5, you do like, you know, wow, this guy is flying. Now, if you're not doing 9 something, you're not even gonna compete. So, you know, over the years, what is needed to the drive has changed. So you know, you have to when you wake in the morning and you go to training, you have to concentrate on different techniques, different stuff.
Okay, I want to ask a question to you too. In your younger years, you say you didn't know that you were an athlete or you had no maybe real interest in running, but your sisters were runners. When did it click to you that, hey, I'm good at this thing, or I could be good at this thing?
When I went to Convent, and we were fighting to, you know, I was trying to go to the Intercol, and I was practically 2 guys competing. The other guy was like, no, I'm not gonna come in. So I was probably the only guy competing for Convent, you know. So I was like in the 100, the long jump, I was a 2nd, 3rd, winning 1 event. And then, you know, that's why they was like, okay. When the guys, Livingston, the other guys came, and Bai and everyone was like, This is a community effort. You just chiseling out on the points, because if you're in there and then okay, I'm there just chiseling out, I'm back practically working against the country. So usually I would say country, meaning country people.
Yeah, St. Andrews.
I'm country guy. If I take half the points, the team we're gonna win. So let's combine our force. And that's from that sense, and I started to feel a little bit of interest into what I'm doing, because it was generally just having fun for me. Go to run. Even as a grown, it was like, okay, when I go to the mark, it's like, okay, let's see who's gonna reach the other end first. You're not like, okay, start and let's go. My thing is like, let's have fun in it. Let's touch the next line. Let's see if I can touch the line before you. Even if you're halfway down the line, I'm still thinking like, okay, I have the drive to get there. I just was my secret in getting there. Let me touch the line before you.
I that's interesting because
that's interesting.
Andris has a really nice story about her and Jacinta
Bartholomew. Yeah.
Tell us your story.
Because when we go to Intercol, no matter how hard I try, I couldn't be Jacinta Bartholomew. She will be Jacinta first, Maureen Vivek from Anglican High second, and I will come third all the time, every single year. So one time I was on the airport, we were leaving. She was going to DC and I was coming to Florida, and I saw her on the airport. I said, "Hi, Jacinta." And she said, "Hi, how do you know me?" And I said, I could never forget the girl I could never beat. And then she realized I used to run against her. So that's how she recognized me and I recognized her, because I knew her as soon as I saw her. And I said, "So how you been doing? You still run and stuff?" And we had a conversation, but she's in DC now. Nobody runs anymore. I don't, she don't,
But your husband does.
Yeah, but he does. I will walk 3 miles a day just to keep the heart pumping. That's it. So yeah, it was nice seeing her and knowing that's one of the athletes I used to run against. But when I used to run, just like Eugene, I never call myself an athlete. I just used to run. I never train. I never used to run train except only for Intercol. That's only when I used to train, when we go in Intercol.
So you had no strategies. Like Eugene was that let me see if I could touch the line before you.
No.
What was yours?
None, nothing. I just go there and I just run. That's it.
Jacinta is in the line. Jacinta is in the line. You don't say today's the day, nothing like that?
No, because I know that no matter how hard I try, I couldn't touch Jacinta. So Jacinta
I don't think any Grenadian could have. And I'm so glad I missed that race with her, because I might have looked very bad. I was in one Intercol and I qualified, but we were so hungry because those days it wasn't as organized as now. We had to bring our own lunch and everything. And I don't know if you guys from SAASS, we had to leave home around 5 to go to Montrose to catch the bus to go to Intercol. So we're living in La Digue, St. Andrews to go to St. Patrick's to catch the bus to go to St. George's. So we had no lunch or anything, just drink some hot water tea and you're gone. I was hungry. And I left the complex and went to look for a cousin in St. George's to feed me. And when I came back, the race was ran. So.
Okay. I want to ask.
So
go ahead, Eugene.
No, so she had her own excuse of running away from the race. That's like pulling a cramp. When you're going down, you be like, oh, I got a cramp.
Well, look at Andris telling us about just stopping running. I'm probably sure it was a cramp when she did spikes.
Eugene, did you have any specific diet that you had because you were just running for the fun of it? Did you say, okay, Intercol or sports or track meet is going to be there. I want to concentrate on my, my energy. I want to eat the Shein, blogger, whatever. What was it? What was it for you? Was there anything for you, or porridge or whatever?
We had no special stuff to do. You remember, the only thing I remember, Livingston always used to give me, we always used to make a mixture of the honey and cod liver oil, and that was our stuff, the honey, the cod liver oil to clean it, and just drink as anything natural as you possibly could. But the honey, the cod liver oil was basically all right.
That's not running. That's for the cool.
Well, anything, the honey, energy. But those are the things, listen to me. The cold, that means it builds your immune system.
Yes.
So
So
you,
we could train and recover.
Make yourselves, vitamin E, make yourself a little sturdy. Your good
Andrew
selves.
didn't know about it, so you definitely didn't share it with the girls. Were you on the same bus?
No, the girls and them were all fun. The girls were like, they were okay. The girl team, they were good, and they were very good support morally, because when you would see the team, you wouldn't see only the guys, you would see the girls there too. It would be like 10, 15 of us. Everybody's coming down together. That's why everybody stayed together. When you look at the school team, even after school and we're hanging out, you would just see everybody sat up together laughing and chatting. And that was the fun in it,
But Grenada, like everywhere in the world, where there's a male and female team, of course, the emphasis is always on the male team. So when Intercol was one day, the girls, the girls did their thing, but it's always at the end of the day when the boys run that everybody comes out for. When it became 2 days, I know the first day, because their schools in St. George's have only girls, that there will be older people, but the second day, because it's boys, everybody comes out, male as well as female. And so how do you see this? Because Grenada is a really small place. It's not like the US and where how do you think now we could improve that? Because I'm not sure what Intercol is like in Grenada now.
Cipriani, you can unmute. You're muted.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
Okay.
And I'm driving now, right?
Right.
I got to go to a meeting. I have to go to a meeting right now, so I'm driving. I don't know if you see I'm driving.
Yes. Okay. So
Yeah.
you're going to be leaving us soon?
Yeah, I gotta go to a meeting. I'm supposed to be there for 6 o'clock, but I realized I went lower than 6, so just trying to be two places.
Thank you for being here with us, and we
Trying
didn't
to be
get
two
to the
places at the same
stories
time,
yet. You
Yeah.
and
Thank you, Mr. Supriani.
you and
Yeah,
you went to school together, and you were policemen together, and we didn't get that far yet.
Yeah,
So
I think what I didn't hear we talk about in since about there. We didn't. I know that they based a little bit on it that if there were if Livingston and let's say Licorish was getting enough training from a professional athlete, they'd have been very far in their craft, because they had no professional training at the time.
I do. Everyone always say that.
I always say that. I always say that. Yeah.
Yeah, but my
stuff,
No, what I'm saying is, yeah, we could have been but I always say that. But I feel contented with the fact that
yeah,
the
and
effort that we made.
But I mean,
I know. Yeah, I do appreciate it.
Yeah,
but I do appreciate it, because I always think that with the fact that the effort that we made to go, and the other guys were, we were like the stepping stone. So there must be a 1, then a 2, then a 3. Everybody cannot be the one that reached to the front. Like in a relay, someone has to start, someone has to run the second log, and then at the end of the day, the whole team wins. So I see that the achievement that
the way in which you're supposed to present the baton to the next person. He has a technique in doing that.
Well, that's what I'm telling you. So it's always an effort from the first person you learn to the next, and you adjust the rest to go. It's the same process.
My son used to run track. I didn't do it, but I happen to have a son who run track. He got a scholarship for track. So, I was able to go into his meets and stuff like that. And when he training, and I realized that we missed a lot out there just looking at the professional in high school, It was crazy, because it opened my eyes a lot, man, because my guys didn't have this kind of professional training, and it was okay,
Well, that's what I say. That's what we have to thank, the guys who even that's what I say. When you come from training in the evening and you would meet Mr. John going down the road, and Mr. John have an idea, and you would listen to him. He's no track athlete. He just finished coming on. He's a farmer, but he would tell you, okay, I noticed this about you. You should do this. That's where you learn, Everyone, you're running up the road to Laddie, you're going through Subies, and you'll meet the guys down there telling you, oh no, keep your head up.
Yeah, keep your chin up,
So keep your chin up. So and then you're more like, okay, come on, I'm almost to die, you know what I mean? But you have the encouragement from everyone around, because they know at the end, okay, this is my guy going down there to do my thing for me,
Mm-hmm. But to add that, I guess some of the things that every even in professional coaching, somebody's idea it was to based on the athlete to help the athlete. You know, keeping your chin up, maybe keeping your head. If you're running with your head down, you're not going to do very well. So all those little tips, yes, they weren't professional coaches, but they helped you.
They help because
Yeah,
it make your breathe
they
better.
do.
Just keeping the head up
They did.
makes you breathe
And
better.
then now that we have the technology that we could assess and break down, we get to realize those basic things. Because as I always say, my father, I always remember, now I'm like, he always used to bring home grapefruit, never used to bring home a lot of oranges, always grapefruit. And I'm like, why this guy always bring grapefruit? Now I realize what we used to do. So he already know, he wouldn't come and tell you, I bring the grapefruit because it's good for antioxidants. He would just bring the grapefruit so that everybody uses it.
Oh, wow.
Ah.
Great one, I never knew.
That's
Or
impressive,
somebody
man.
just say grapefruit is good
So,
for
yeah.
runners or something like that, you know?
Yeah. So
So,
now you
man,
get, as you grow and you get the technology, you get that, you
Yes,
get to figure out, well, okay,
behind it.
those people know something, you know?
So now we see when and without even knowing it, your representing S.A.A.S. at St. Andrews was representing all of the country because everybody is depending on you to make a difference for us. At Livingston, the same thing. And so I don't know what it is like for people, for the athletes from St. George's, if it was just, you know, the school, but we know we always felt you were doing this for the rest of us. And so that's why seeing you, it's like you represented us every day. It was the, oh my gosh, it's, you know, we had celebrities without even knowing, we had heroes. You didn't even know it, but you were, I guess if there were magazines back then, you would have been starring it, you and Livingston and those guys, because you were that big for us. And so
yeah.
when you won, when we came, listen, even if we can't see you at Intercol, we would never see you. We at home in the country, listen to the radio. We feel the pride, even if it's S.A.A.S., we feel the pride. You want to be in Grenville when the bus comes. You feel the pride even after Intercol when you're going with your bag and your books to school. It's like that was the guy at Intercol a few months ago. So you did it always for us. You always
Well,
represented St. Andrews and the country area.
and that's always good to know. You know, when you, especially when you go to, I remember when what I used to do after in the school sports, when I win my, and they only give you the medal, I'll take my medal and go straight up to the pavilion and give it to my mom to hold for me. Then she will be sitting there with all the trophies. And I mean, those are the stuff that you remember that makes you feel good, you know?
And everybody get to touch
I,
you as you're going to drop it off to your mom. Your sweaty hand, but it feels so good to touch your
sweaty
sweaty arm.
hand, you say hi. It was a whole day of just having fun, you know?
I want to ask Andris from the female perspective because the male were celebrities.
That's a pretty feeling,
Everybody
man.
knew who
I'm
they
trying to see.
were.
What can I say? All right, man. Hey, girl.
Cyprian, I'm gonna mute you. You're at
Yeah, because I'm coming to a meeting right now and people start coming in there. So
All
yeah,
right.
just before I leave, just to say a little bit more on what Sherman just said concerning St. Andrews. Back then, it used to be St. George's against the country.
Mhm.
You know, it was only St. George's, you know, back then. So when St. Andrews started leading, it was something different, you know.
Yeah.
Back then was only St. George's, everything was St. George's and the country. Because no, you know, I can remember back in the days, some of the guys used to win the race, but it used to be close. And it was given on to the St. George's guys, and the St. Andrews guy didn't get any prize.
We had no photo
know?
finish.
Yeah, you know, Mark could talk about that. Mark is here, you know. Yeah, you know. Yeah. So anyway, I gotta go.
All right, thank you for being with us. Have a good one.
What time y'all gonna finish?
Pretty soon, I think maybe within half an hour or so.
Because I
We
don't know
don't
how long
want to
this
tax the viewers too much.
I don't know how long this meeting gonna last, but if I happen to finish, I will log back on and see if you all still at it. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
everything. You know.
You're welcome. Bye.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mr.
like for
Lick, it's
instance,
nice seeing you again, man. You know, it's been a
all right,
while,
so
man.
Freddie, we'll see you again, man. Stay
You know, I live in Jersey, so I'm not close to you, man.
Brooklyn.
Yeah. All right, take care, Mark. You take care, man.
All right, respect.
And Louis, take care.
All right, Cipriani.
All right.
Like for instance, I was, as you were mentioning, the crowd and everyone. For instance, we would go in the intercall, and but you say as the time of the relays would start, and it would no longer be, you know, S.A.A.S., Convent, Grenville Tech, everyone would be as just one crowd, you know. So we would find half of the kids from Convent in the middle of S.A.A.S. It would just be a rainbow of colors with the gray, and everyone would, it was not like, you know, S.A.A.S. is winning now, you know.
Do you remember back then the relay, the last relay for the female used to be a medley. It wasn't a 4x, it wasn't like a 4x4. It used to be the 2, the 1, and then the 4. You remember that, Eugene? Yeah, it used to be a medley. It used to be
the medley. The medley. We used to do the medley. I think it was Whitson Tide used to do the medley, and you know.
Yeah, the female used to be a medley. 4x1 by 1 by 2 by 1 by 1
in the early
4.
days, yes. In the early days, it used to be a medley.
For the female.
And then the male was always the 4x4, 4x1 by 1 by 4.
The medley was again.
Andris?
I'm sorry?
What was the medley?
I wanted to ask Andris.
The medley was 2x1 by 1 by 4.
Woo!
Yeah.
But
for the ladies, right?
Yeah.
Is it because they thought the women didn't have the stamina? Why you think there was this 2x1 by 1 by 4 rather than?
In the beginning, I think it used to be like, you know, there were different. The track was not like a professional part. It used to be more of an entertainment. So the races were organized just for entertainment purposes.
Okay.
Because just like how we remember when we were growing up, we used to have the 3-legged race also as part of the
lime and spoon and all those
as part of the game itself, the 3-legged, the spoon, the lime and spoon race.
Needle and thread
so
and all those things.
That's where I get most of those other events coming as the 1x4. Because now if you have noticed, it is coming back. They're even in the big international meets now, they're mixing the male and the female in the relay races.
So is that to get different skills levels to participate at the same race as opposed to
strategy, techniques? You know, they could have a team. You could have a relay team with mixed relays. If you will see them now, they will have different countries. They have 2 guys, 1 girl, 3 guys, 1 girl, 2 guys, 2 girls. You know.
Okay.
And you get a mixed relay, which you should look at them. Some of them are pretty interesting. The women's are. It's not a matter of male and women anymore.
That's why I want to ask Andris, like, how did the S.A.A.S. girls, because S.A.A.S. boys were like lords and kings and princes, and the girls were, personally, I could not, even if there were many S.A.A.S. girls in our neighborhood, we walk home together with them. We, you know,
never knew they were.
I couldn't remember, and I never knew who was. And from Eugene's picture, I see, Livingston's picture, I see Pamela George and so on. So Andris, how was that? How did you guys did you have any ill feelings? Like the boys are always on top, or was it just let's run, get the points, and then we're gonna support the boys? What was it like?
I mean, we just see ourselves going and represent S.A.A.S. and getting points for S.A.A.S. But we knew the boys were always the ones we recognized anyway. And for me, I didn't feel any type of way about it because I know the boys, they were really good.
Right.
And the songs that we used to have, there was one song where it says Livingston, Eugene, Carl Vincent, and Roosevelt Blair, Pamela, Gail Francis, and remember Andris. So they had all the songs. They had all the songs they used to sing.
Sing it for us. You're getting me all excited.
Yeah, I can sing.
No, we're gonna talk. We're gonna go ahead.
Livingston, Eugene, Carl Vincent, and Roosevelt Blair, Pamela, Gail Francis, Shirley, and remember Andris. S.A.A.S. is the hardest, and we come down from the country.
You know, hearing those things, it make you feel Intercol again, and my skin is getting all goosebumps.
S.A.A.S. is the hardest. S.A.A.S. GBS.
You're making me feel like going to start to warm up, right?
You
want to go
start to warm up, right?
I know. These are the memories that I have that I won't forget. These songs, when you're singing this song, it gives you more hype to really go out there and do what you need to do. So
Yeah.
we know the boys were good, so and we know the boys were, and we had to support the boys. But after we finished, we support the boys. But we had to do our own thing first, and then after we do our own thing, then we support the boys. But the support from the crowd, and this thing is not from S.A.A.S., but from St. Andrews.
Yeah.
Well,
It was
we were from
everybody
Mount
doing
Rose
that.
and St. Patrick's, and I remember towards the
Oh, we from St.
evening,
Andrews.
we shift. Well, our school, we shift to sit close to S.A.A.S. and so we can make the bleachers.
The bleachers.
The bleachers
dance.
rock.
They bend.
The
I
bump
remember
on the
once
bleachers.
the announcer calling out and saying to stop the jumping because the bleachers might break. the bleachers bend like low down to the ground. And from our perspective, we had a song because for us, it wasn't about S.A.A.S., it was more against GBS. So we had our own songs, and I'm not gonna sing it here again because I sang it before. It was a solid obscene song, but you know, we had to put in body parts in it in talking about S.A.A.S. win. So I understand the songs, the rhythm, and I know the boys got electricity from that to keep going. Because I heard about one of the things, go Livingston, go, don't give up. And
Yeah.
he was just,
Yeah, that one was nice.
yeah.
And there was one that had beat them at the end too. Go something, so beat them, beat them. And I still say beat them when somebody has to go do something. I say go beat them. I tell my kids
That's
that when they
nice.
go into exams, go beat them.
Yeah.
There was a
Go
song
get
I
'em.
never forget because it had the year in it. It was like 1979 we won. 1980 we had it. Now we getting it again. So I remember 79, 80, 81 we had won the trophies and for S.A.A.S.
I think you guys so far you had 15 wins or something. I'm not sure about the numbers now. I saw
So
it.
that was good because even after we left, the guys continued to dominate and also, break even most of the records we left and improved on it drastically, which is also great. So, even up to recently,
How
I remember I remember actually a few years ago there was a guy Reggie's son who ran a wicked leg in a 4x4 to bring S.A.A.S. back at the end of one of the last few nice intercourse we had before the COVID. You remember those. Then that was one of the events that everyone was like, okay, this event reminds me of back in the day.
Yeah.
Which at least it was still good. Remember Reggie, Reggie's? Reggie?
Yeah.
Yeah, Reggie's son did that a nice little run.
Yeah.
I just imagine it was Reggie's son that did it. So that was like, okay, wow. I know the guy, I know he's, what I mean? Even if you don't know the son, you know the guy,
Legacy, yeah.
Yeah. I Reggie used to play a good cricket. He used to be the same form with us too.
Yeah.
Andris, you also told me too about house in S.A.A.S. You were in were you in yellow?
I was in Pigat, green.
Green.
Yeah.
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 And Eugene was in yellow.
I was in Elaine, yeah. We had everyone on one team, and that was the other team. I just imagine we used to compete in this. That's what I always said. We were in the school, and we had all the athletes one team, and the other guys would still come and compete like aggressively, like, okay, this time you guys are gonna go. So even in the school, you'll be like, okay, this guy looking to take my place. So I have to run to make the team. It's not like, okay, you're automatically on the team.
Yeah.
Because when Eugene came in, and it was Eugene, Livingston, and Roosevelt. You remember Roosevelt, Blair Bassman?
Yeah, Blair.
Was in the house. But before they came in, Pigat used to be the winner because they had Walter Simmons, Patrick Simmons, and Dylan Christopher. So
on one team.
On one team on Pigat House. So after
Okay.
they left, then Eugene took over for Lane House. Yeah.
So apparently they give each house overload in a year.
Yeah, they were everyone, and then but that wasn't like you're automatically gonna win.
Right, because Nationals had Godfrey Augustine Nationals, you had Godfrey Nationals, and you also had you remember Rabo's son of you?
Orville, yeah.
Right here, I think it used to be school or something like that, I'm not sure. And then you had Babili and Gunny on Pigat.
Yeah.
That was good
Yeah.
competition all around.
So so your position was never automatic. Even though I was Eugene and he was Livingston, when each time on track, you had to go out there and compete. And you had Frank and Bushy and those guys then who would just laugh at you just to take your position.
So I'm gonna switch gears a little, because Eugene, you left school. Did you finish Form 5?
Yeah, I did finish school. And then we had the revolution and we went to GTV and then they had the invasion. And then I went to the police. I didn't go back to school.
Right. So you didn't go back first, second year, which
Oh,
is
no, we went back for 1 year. That was the last year of that Intercol when the peacekeepers took over and they were doing the foolishness,
Mhm.
take over the
Excuse me,
track
let me
because
ask you a
they want.
question. Did you go to the police post was to continue running? Because that's why I went to the police post to continue running.
You were also
No, when I went to the police, it was like I went one day to meet Trevor and they was like waiting for him. It was like, oh no, just go do the exam while I'm waiting, and then I automatically just stayed in there. I did the exam. I didn't even tell my parents I did the exam or anything. And then one day we were home and then they were just started to call the names for guys to report to this fire station in the morning. Then,
Oh,
That's
so this is
interesting.
That's when my father got to know and everyone got to know that I went to do the exam. To do that, I did the exam.
and now everybody
Yeah,
can
when
see your profile.
yeah, and Trevor was like, okay, that's good.
Wow.
Right.
We were
Eugene,
going to train in the park, and then Trevor was doing something in CRO, and then okay, while I wait for you, I do the exam.
Yeah.
question for Eugene and Andres, you can answer as well. What effect did Mr. Cresswell, your principal, have on you as an athlete? What effect did he have on you as an athlete? Did as Eugene mentioned earlier, when him and Livingston had to run, and they both were prolonging the race because both were afraid of, using up too much of the energy, and then at the end, Mr. Cresswell said, whatever he said, when you at the end of every sports meet track, and when you go back to school, what did he say that could make you want to do better next time? Or
Well,
for me, it was nothing because, as you know, it was just the guy. The guys was the main athlete at the school. So we as female never really had. I don't think Chris even know who I was, to be honest.
okay, Eugene.
So Eugene could answer
I
that,
would
not me.
listen to me. I wouldn't say he wouldn't know exactly who you are because even though I myself who came over had not too much like what you would say contact verbal communication with him. When I had communication, it was always the learning effect because it was always with a point where I was doing something wrong or stupid, Then he would call me quietly in the corner and be like, okay, mister, you have to try this. He wouldn't tell me what I'm doing is wrong. He would tell me, oh, why don't you try lifting your head up? Why don't you try walking around? Why don't you try this? So then you already know that you're not getting bullied to learn. You get the information, so it was always good. But when you have to get bullied and when you have to make you feel small, you will feel small. Because I remember once we had a football game and we were all playing, and then I got kind of like angry and I took the ball and I kicked it away. And then, when I kicked the ball, it went right over his head, And I was like, so the next day, there was like I was totally banned from touching any ball in the school. So you get angry and you're like, okay, game done, and you kick the ball, boom, and you pass right over your head. You're like, okay. And that was not even in the school. That was like a football game in the park in the evening.
Oh.
So you get angry, boom, kick the ball over the way, game done.
So that means. So he monitored you as a student. He looked out basically for you. His role as a principaled you even out of school.
Yeah. Those roles never stopped in school. In those days, the principal role never stopped in school. They stopped after school. Him, Mr. Robert, even the teachers. by Mr. Donald. Their role never stopped in the classroom after we walked away. Even though you meet them in the park in the evening, even if you sit watching the game, the conversation would also be educational, whereby you would learn, you know?
I think that is nice because in our conversation with Livingston earlier, he said, if you're a teacher, you must be a part of your community in so many ways. And so impacting your life continuously is what I think is something we could learn from that as parts of the community, that we should be an impact always to whoever we come in contact with, whatever a station of life is. Thank you.
And it did not only stop when you're in school, Mr. You're a grown man going down the street as a police officer and you see Mr. Julian on the next side and you're back to zero, you know, your head, so you have to be like, okay, am I walking correctly? Am I, carrying myself properly? You'll be Mr. Roberts and you'll be like, okay. Even it's not only when you're a kid, even as you grow older. Even now, I think if they were still alive and I'm going out there, I'll be like, oh, what did I do wrong?
And that I think it's nice and important because it makes you're accountable to someone, and so your behaviors must always be in step and properly done. So whatever you do, because you're accountable. And I think if more of us live that way, we would have less of those things that we have now, those that have negative social impact.
You have to remember, in our days growing up, even like you and your sister was always remember that in our days, the community were the kids, because you ain't going down the road and do anything and the neighbors saw you or someone, you're not getting, you're not if you get it, it's when, they're definitely going to tell. Or if they can't tell your parents, they take care of you themselves, and they're okay, I'll tell your parents I cut your ass when I get home,
That's true. But is it, I don't know what it is like in Grenada these days, but because I'm hearing a lot of craziness that's going on there. But do you think that we need more of those, the community being involved in every person's life more?
We need a lot more of that, but you have to remember the culture has changed.
I guess we're seeing too much North American TV.
Value is, it's not a matter of American TV alone, because you could see certain things, as long as you don't adapt to it, it's not an effort. It will be an effort to you, but we see the stuff and we take it as we adapt to it like it's right, and disrespect. And everyone now, we're so divided in Mexico, the fact that everyone has its own different reasoning towards the topic. Like I remember one of Miss Walker said one of the stuff, when you come to the Bible, and then everyone comes up with their own different deduction of the right. You come up with a lot of various ideas. So for instance, there's right and there's wrong. So you could tweak the law or you could tweak the word accordingly to suit your purpose.
To suit your purpose. Right. For the good old days.
It's always not too much, because when you're coming home from school in the evening and you pass the neighbor and you don't see him, and you go and tell the parent that you did pass and you see him,
you say hi.
That was the good old days.
Pass with your nose in the air.
You leave some parts,
You by the time you tell your parents, that's a beat down. Why didn't you say hi to Mr. John? Can't see, I didn't see him.
So I have to ask you and Andris before, and I'm going to switch gears quickly. In terms of parental support, were your parents behind you? I'll ask Andris first, and then I'll ask Andris. Your mom knew you were running, your mom and your dad, did they know you were an athlete for the school, you were winning, and did they come out and support you, or did they in the morning say, here's an extra strong for you, a little bit of energy or something like that?
No, I mean, my mom allowed me to go and represent the school in Intercol and when sports day and stuff like that. But she never really was there to say, okay, my mom knew I used to run. That's all we knew. I used to run. We never take it like I was an athlete or anything like that. I just running. I like running, and I run and I win, and that's all we knew. The only thing is she used to allow me to go and run and to play netball, because I used to play netball too, and I used to be home late from netball, because every evening after netball finish, bus stop running. Not as now when bus run late. So we had to walk from Grenville to Munich.
Yes.
Myself and Sonia. So So she allowed me to do that, but to say like she was supporting. My mom never seen me run ever. She have never seen me run.
Oh.
No, my mom have never seen me run.
Are there any pictures anyway?
No pictures. Only medals and trophies. That's all I brought home. And
So
actually, when I left Grenada, I think they destroyed everything. Got thrown out. Medals got thrown out. Trophies got thrown. Everything got thrown out.
Yeah.
Well, when I left home, I left 26 medals and I think 5 trophies between running and netball, and everything's gone. Nothing to show for it. Yeah.
It would be nice to have them in a museum somewhere because, you know, even in between Munich and Leipzig, there's the Rome Museum in the middle there. And we could have had a museum for athletes in the neighborhood. Because let's say if we're looking, and Eugene, you know area well. So we're looking from Leipzig to Munich. So going south from Leipzig.
Yeah.
We have the George in the middle. You were telling me about Larry Maguire, who also ran for S.A.A.S. We had some Lewises in Union. Then we had
there is also those guys. Yeah, Union going down the park. Yeah, go down to Battle Hill.
There we have the marathoners like O'Neill Findlay,
O'Neill and all the guys from the back. No.
Andris. So we could make a museum somewhere in the middle there to memorialize.
And don't forget Salami.
Salami,
yeah.
Yes, David.
Yes, Salami. When it comes to long distance. Yeah.
Yes.
And those are guys while away, those guys in the back, that was
absolutely
permanent structure of the society.
You guys called EP, Evelyn Pitt.
Yes, EP.
Yes, Evelyn Pitt.
and Gunny used to run pretty good too. Gunny's from Waka.
Gunny's
from Waka. Yeah, he's yeah.
Teacher Carolina and them son. Yeah, he used to run pretty good too.
Tanisha Lele and them. Jerry, you know.
Guys,
oh yeah. Okay.
Yes, you all have me cracking up here, and you won't imagine why.
Why?
I remember they used to have this big marathon. The guys, I think maybe Laddick Colts Club organized it, or some organization in Laddick organized that.
Every Sunday morning it should be like that.
Yeah, and then but I have this uncle, and I'm saying this, and I know he's gonna get me for it. But listen, they had this big, it's an annual thing. And this uncle of mine, he's now a priest, Father Leroy Hopkins. He decided, he was never known as an athlete, but he decided this year he's going to participate in a marathon. But they had this thing called Radiant B.
For rubbing your muscles.
And there was some kind of spray people used to put on in a red and white can or something like that. He got a can of it, and before the race, he sprayed his entire legs from bottom to top. He sprayed his legs. Listen, I think he got as far as Sobeys, and he was on fire. They had to take him out of the race. I mean, everybody in Laddick was talking about this. What happened with this marathoner who had to be taken out of the race because he was on fire with this thing he sprayed all over. But it was kind of fun. It was in those days. It wasn't about doping and doing. It wasn't that. It was just trying to be outsmart everybody else.
I defend Father Leroy here. It probably is to avoid the pain. It's preventing
getting the muscle stiff.
Yeah. No, that is it. But Radiant B, it warms you up. And the thing about it, you're gonna get hot when you run.
Anyhow.
Yeah. So it was just funny. It was just funny. He was laughing about it too. It was a big joke for everybody. But on a serious note,
if I was a coach, I'd tell him you dip in the Grenville River, you dip in the Laddick River, you dip in the River, and you would have made it through. Balthazar,
On a serious note, Eugene, what stands out the most for me with Eugene, seeing him growing up, because I went to St. David's Secondary at the time, and then I spent a year in Convent after St. David's Secondary. But earlier on, when Eugene was in his at the peak of his high school days as an athlete, I used to run into Eugene in the Grenville Recreational Ground. And quite often he was there either practicing, training, doing his own thing, just by himself, And everybody, looking on, I was included among those looking on. Oh, he might be there playing football or just chilling with his friends, but it seemed like he was always ready to run a race. He was always ready to do something athletic. And he was very approachable. I mean, he had his friends, he was cool, but the discipline, when it came to, running, he didn't have a coach per se, but he developed himself. And I know there was one of the brothers was talking earlier on that if we had, proper coaching back in those days, how much further he might have gone. And I think that there is some truth to that, because he did the best he could have with what he had, but more than the others is the discipline and the time he put aside, like the running all the way up to Ladig. And I lived in Ladig, Mount St. Evans back in those days, and there were times when you would be passing by where he talked about Toe, that's Richard Vincent.
Yes.
Richard was Richard, Teddy St. Louis, Don Beggs, Roderick St. Clair, myself. That was a group. Vivian Philbert. That was a group that hung out together by the Big Stone, by Miss Amy.
The Big Stone, right? Go to
That's right. That's right. And Eugene would go past there, and some of those guys went to S.A.A.S., like Richard and Roderick. Yeah. And so I sometimes got up too late to be there with them in the evening coming from St. David's. But on the weekend, we'd all be together mostly. But those were great days. And then Eugene, of course, he wasn't just an athlete on the track. On the tracks, he also played other sports, and we didn't get into that much. But he did other things besides track and field. So I really want to commend him for all that he did, the discipline he showed, and along with the others, Livingston, Patrick Simmons, the ones who came, Bobby Lee, another friend, for all that they did for athletics in Grenada. And my biggest lament is the fact that government leadership did not, utilize what these guys had to offer in terms of inspiration and in terms of ability, and take it further, and to really make them a part of the fabric of sports, the development of sports in Grenada and the region. And it's not too late. It's not too late. And that is why in that commentary I did a while back, folks can Google it on it's on Facebook. It's important that we have some kind of hall of fame to recognize the great athletes of yesteryear. And of course, Livingston belongs there, Eugene belongs there, and several others.
Well, Andris left so many medals at home. But Jerry, I want to ask you, because I've learned that I don't know about GBSS, but PBC had something like a wall of fame where all the athletes were there along the wall, that even younger kids could have told you about the athletes that went on 20 years ahead of them. So,
and that's good. And that's good. But it's
had it, and I don't know if S.A.A.S. had it. And so I need to, because I just learned that we never had anything like that. We don't even know who ran before us.
Well, that's a good starting point. I know St. David's Secondary, I mean, you will hear the names, but they did not really have that hall or wall of fame. We need that at and it should be a policy of the government to have that in every high school on the island. They should implement that. And beyond that, there should be a national wall or hall of fame, and recognize the artists, document, profile each one, their accomplishments, the records they broke, the meets that they contested in nationally and regionally and internationally. It should be documented for every single one of them. And that is what I would advocate for. And I'm happy that you're having this show so we can raise these kind of issues here. And let's hope we take it further afield and make the request.
Absolutely. And I am really happy. And that's one of the things I have to thank Eugene for. Eugene, although I found Andris through somebody else, but Eugene gave me a list of about 20 or 30 athletes who he'd really like to see talked about and made recognized. And one of them was from P.T. Marknick in Carriacou. I mean, P.T. Marknick, sorry.
Yes.
I never knew. And most Carriacou people, even when I tried to find out about this athlete, Martin Clement, had no idea about it. And he represented Grenada on the OECS level. When I called Martin himself, because through Eugene, I've managed to work my way to finding him, And I asked him, I said, is there anybody in PT Martinique you'd like to have to think? And he said, PT Martinique people never really followed me. It's not something that it's in us to recognize the people that made those contributions. We enjoy them in the moment. We jump, we get the goosebumps the night, yeah! And then tomorrow we forget the contributions they made to a good feeling yesterday. And that's what this channel is about. And I hope we can continue this, and together collectively we can start working towards, because here in my son's high school, my daughter's high school, they have the walls of fames and the big cupboards with all the athletes from since 1940 something. You can find these schools here as well have newspapers. So the newspapers with the athletes like Andris Record would be there. My son and my daughter can go in and pull out the old newspaper from the archive and see their records. And now think about these people's children. Your children can go look up mom and dad. Imagine the pride and the community spirit we would have when a kid walking
Inspiration.
this man is on a wall, and let me go talk to him. Let you know, we're gonna
like for instance, with Martin, and we were chatting sometime last week, and he was like, you know, Eugene, when I was training for the Intercol and for the national team, I only had like about 60 meters of 100 track. The rest was in the sea. That for someone who would have that limited, you know, just that limited facility and came and competed with us and did the same thing, because no matter what, he was also part and achieved that level. I even think is much a greater step than even we from the mainland with facilities.
Yeah, you won. You set a record that time for the 4x4. Was it 4x4 or 4x1?
We all the 4x1, and we set a record in the OECS Games. So that's
and Martin only was able to train on 60 meters of track, and the rest was the sea.
Yeah.
And they came together and won. So I mean,
so that's what I'm saying. This guy and there's a lot of people with sacrifices and other natural stuff that came along the line that did stuff that, you know, is great. And it's also know that, you know, it's great to realize that no matter what, at that time, we were all representing Grenada. We had one purpose in mind. It was an individual thing. So he was Petit Martinique and Tong, S.A.A.S. We were all one, which is something that we have to kind of instill right back into our community. And as a nation, no matter where you are, who you are, what you support, we have to look to one thing. We are Grenadians, so there's a time for us to make the move and to develop as one. You know, we're in the Downs now.
Well, you know, our anthem, ever conscious of God, we had ever conscious of God, we advance as one people, but sometimes we forget, aspire, build, and advance as one people, but sometimes we forget that. And it seemed to me from your story, or from what you just shared with Martin Clement and yourself, and then we spoke to Livingston before, it was success in spite of all the limitations that you've had, you still were able to overcome those and succeed and not see those as limitations. You ran, you didn't have a track, you didn't have a coach, you didn't say, well, I have a coach, so I'm not running. I don't have spikes, so I'm not running. You still made do, and actually you became more creative in the process in advancing yourself to be the athlete that you were. And I think more credence go to you now that we hear your story for your successes, because you were not successful just merely as an athlete, but as a person who was running. You built your own spike, got your own tights made and all those things. And I think that goes to show us, the rest of us who are limited in whatever way, that should not stop us from succeeding in whatever discipline that we put our mind to. We have to be willing, intrinsically be desirous of succeeding regardless to what our limitations are. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay,
and so it's good to that if we have one creative North Star, as we find that, you know, we move together to achieve, like for instance, at the school, whether you're from S.A.A.S. or from Granville Tech or from Convent or Montrose, you had, okay, this is my country, I'm representing country at the time. So the support will come around. So if we put that same, we become creative. So if we put that same effort today into the uniting ourselves and moving forward as one, like I say, unit as a country. Let's just, for instance, Grenada, we're right now, we have everything as the core economy, everything is down. One of the things we have to learn to come together, remember that at one point we are Grenadians.
Yeah.
And we will fight and divide ourselves after, but first, let us get creative.
First, we're Grenadians.
Trying to see how we're gonna feed ourselves to be happy and to develop. That is something that if we install that unity of find one common ground, which would be very great.
Yeah.
All right, you speak as a
Right.
politician there, Eugene. I think you have the political ambition somewhere.
Running
May
mate.
have grabbed that was very profound, I must say.
No, it's not a politician's view, it's the general way of life. I mean, other
Well,
forces that we have learned over the years that we have to take note that if we don't come together and move in one creative thing, it's gonna be difficult.
but that should be the politician's view. You see, it's not a matter of dividing the country based on small fractions. It's because we're already so small. We need to bring our
Yeah,
small selves, bring our small steps together to make ourselves great.
because smaller by dividing, we fracture, we
Yeah,
fracture that we don't even we have a million little groups, and not one
little
common
pieces.
group.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're gonna wrap up now. I want to thank you because Eugene, despite it all, you went all the way to the Olympics in '92. You went to World Championship. You made a
That's
transition.
something they didn't even mention at the World Championships and those places. Everybody mentioned Olympic, but there were other events that we participated in. Like, for instance, back in them days, we used to have the regional police games, which, no matter what, as I would say, most of the athletes in those games were also members of the national team. So those games are also highly, competitive.
Yeah.
And I hope that we'll get some time to discuss that, and I would find other friends and other people from different islands who would be like, okay, let me put our own input in, because I know I've got a police officer friends who is like, who I told them about it, and they were like, oh yeah.
So we
I would
can
like to say something,
yes.
but
We can have this discussion because I've never known about the police games. And you made a transition from track to a field event, which is the long jump, which is where you made your record, and the record that still stands for the OECS. And one of the things I've learned too from the OECS team, because I think you were among the older guys on the team, the younger fellows were very appreciative of your discipline. And how, it's easy for guys, as you said earlier with, Mr. Mark said with the athlete that went out without permission and Cressy had to discipline her. You kept those athletes focused during the OECS camp. And that's a very good thing. And I like the fact that you keep advocating. You ask me to find some females, you ask me to find other athletes. And we have to remember that part of society, because Grenada, or the economy of the island, is not only based on the business end. Sports, youth development, and sports is very integral in developing young people, and it gives them all the discipline they need
To succeed elsewhere.
absolutely, the transferable skills. And we probably don't even know, because when I think about it, we never put it into a process. But to be an athlete, you judge lots of things. And I remember one race you guys were running, and they were saying the wind was against you guys, so you weren't going to win. But the St. George's guys were used to running in different conditions in that park. So there are lots of things you have to know. And I appreciate the time here. I appreciate everybody being on the panel. And I want to do the thing we always do, because you're a special guest of honor along with Andris today. And I will start, if Jerry Hopkins is there, Jerry Hopkins, what would you like? Eugene's contributed so much for us. He's still holding the long jump record for the OECS. It's 8.09 meters. What would you like to give Eugene for the many joys and excitement and lessons he gave us?
What would I like to give him? Like I said,
what going away gift? Yes.
Yeah, like I said, we need a national wall of fame, or hall of fame, to make it physical and give it some presence. And his name ought to be on that list. And we also, in CARICOM, at the OECS and CARICOM level, we need a way of recognizing all of our athletes, as Eugene has been encouraging us to do, identifying that there are others in the region that deserve to be recognized. So we need it nationally and on a regional level. And I would include his name at every level, at the national level, as well as at the regional level. And I might go further and say that the various parishes in Grenada should have an initiative to have a parish wall of fame. And he would be included, of course, in the St. Andrew Wall of Fame. So we need to, at the parish level, the national level, and the regional level, we need to recognize these athletes and tap into their wealth of experience from time to time for young athletes at the high school and primary school level, and have these athletes visit those who are still with us to share their stories, share their tips, share best practices, you may say. And so that is, I would like to see, and knowing, being someone who speaks to Eugene on a regular basis, I know that he's ready to help, that he's ready to be a part of it, and it will be recognition at the same time. So he'll be giving back at the same time while we are recognizing him. So that's ideally, because I know it's not just a matter of looking for anything material, although he deserves that too, and he should have gotten that long ago, and he didn't get it. Like he said, they have to buy their own stuff. All the monies, the folks who represented Grenada nationally, they should do an accounting. All the monies they spent buying shoes and everything else that they had to get to make the trips representing Grenada, they should be refunded all of that at some point in time. I think with interest. But one last thing, while we were having the discussion here, I noticed we had the sisters talking, great athlete from my part of neck of the woods in St. Andrews. I can't remember her name right now, but she's on here. And the women in St. David's did something similar to what S.A.A.S. did nationally. St. David's Catholic Secondary, which used to be just St. David's Secondary School back in those days. And the Anglican High School was a tongue school that kept winning until St. David's Secondary upset that. And then St. David's Secondary broke the record and went past Anglican High School. And I think they still have that lead in terms of number of Intercol games won. Now, what I would love to see us do in a future edition of this show is to bring somebody from St. David's Catholic Secondary, one of the coaches who was one of the athletes in the heyday of the S.A.A.S.S. So I think that would add value to this as well, because I mean, just as everyone went after S.A.A.S. as the men's group at the Intercol, so to everyone after a while, was behind S.A.A.S.S. when it came to winning the women's, because it was so ingrown that the schools from the capital were always winning everything and acting pompously as if they're the only ones with the best athletes. So when a country school did it and overcame, everyone else joined and was able to identify. I mean, of course, a lot of it was just pure fun. But as a country, we have to come together and recognize that there are great athletes everywhere in Grenada, CARIFTA and PD. And the fact is, the great athletes at the Anglican High School and at the GBSS also came from the country. so it's not just the environment, it's who we are as a people, and we are one people. But again, Eugene, I salute you and I commend you for all that you've accomplished, and would continue to do so. And I hope that the authorities in Grenada and in the region would recognize more athletes like yourself, who have accomplished so much and who still has a lot to offer.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you. Andris, so you gave up in the race halfway. If there is something, if there is something you can take back or give young kids growing up now, sports is a lot more organized now, because I heard even the Carriacou PT Martiniques competed in Intercol separately and became, I think, 3rd and 4th and 5th or something like that in the last Intercol.
Yeah.
COVID. So it's getting more recognized and it's more organized. It's way ahead now, but we still don't recognize our athletes tomorrow, the tomorrow part. So Andris, from your point of view, what would you give now to young athletes out there, and what, moving on, like from here on, what would you change?
I think take it more seriously, because back then I didn't take it serious. I didn't think I was an athlete. I was just going out there and run. I never trained, but they take your training seriously. You train hard, and if you keep working on it, you could achieve it. You could achieve anything you put your mind to if you work at it. I didn't work at it and I didn't take it seriously. Now you see sports is really big. Back then I didn't know sports was that big. I didn't know nothing about Olympics back then. But now you work towards it.
Okay, all right. So you tell them set that goal. Now they know. And children are more informed now. Young people are much more informed.
Informed now, yeah. They know a lot more now than we knew back then. So now that you know, you work towards it to achieve it.
Absolutely,
Take it serious.
In terms of the Wall of Fame, did SAASS have that? Did you? Is there some way? I tried to reach the former secretary, but I wasn't successful. That you can go and find what you did for the school.
I don't think so. I'm actually, my daughter had went to school in S.A.A.S. for a couple of years. I had sent her back home, and she was going to school in S.A.A.S. And I think when she got there, one of the teachers told her the way I used to run, so they expect the same from her. But I don't think they have something to show for it. I don't think so.
Okay. Show me in. Sorry, Eugene, go ahead.
No, what I'm according to Andris, she's right. You know, there's not much like that because it was not like, as you said, the information era and the storage of information are just like coming in. It's like a period. You know, you move, the computer has now been in, and now we can store the information. Because a few years ago, you know, you would look for different stuff and then no one would find it because all the records was destroyed during the hurricane. And, you know, you have to remember that where we come from and where we're going, we cannot be like, okay, we should have been there. Then we never knew that we had to keep all those records and everything has died. So it's good now that we should try to start to make sure that we don't forget.
Absolutely, it's not too late because we still have our memories, and
the memories, and then there are other people that you could get the information from.
Thing to make a data, and I do have a project called the Who's Who. It is La Dig really, but a few days ago I decided to expand it. So we have our memories. We know who's who, and we know what they did. I can find you on Wikipedia, Eugene. I can't find Andris. I couldn't find Martin, who was your teammate on the OECS. So because you went to Olympic, you have an edge in that they have a little bit, just a snippet, your birth date and your record, and the year you attended the World Championship and Olympic. But we don't know anything about you. We don't know where you went to high school, middle school, sorry, for example, or primary school or anything like that. So we now, as Grenadians, we also owe it to ourselves and to each other to start documenting our history. Andris, you have to put your stuff together. If you have to send it to us, we have to put you on Wikipedia. When your kids look you up, it's a matter of pride, and it brings up everybody else from your village and from all Grenada, even the Caribbean. So when they go in and they look you up, you tell your kid a story and she goes, huh, can't find it anywhere. But
because I think O.E.C.S, I think she had represented Grenada one time in Barbados, and she had placed in the long jump. I don't remember if she had placed first, second, or third, but she had placed in the long jump. O.E.C.S. I remember she represented. You remember that, right, Eugene?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's no records of this because Grenada never really kept that level of record. So there are other stuff that I did, Livingston did, Trevor did, you know?
Yeah.
Patrick did, other athletes did that have disappeared over the years. Now that, you know, you get the different information era where everyone will keep the track of how many steps you make for the day. So now we could have the point to implement it, you know?
I have volunteered for that role because even locally within the school, we can't find the Grenada Athletic Association. I'm ashamed to say, I've emailed them, even haven't responded to me. The OECS only keeps the current record. So if you had a record for 5 years and now somebody broke your record, you're out.
That's what then you get to realize with this certain level, it's not much of a development. It's more of a business process. But you know, we have to take the interest to develop your own self because everyone else has their own. You can remember it will cost money to keep the records, and no one would spend any extra money to do those things.
But that's the responsibility. We have governments for one, and then maybe special interest groups, community groups, and so on. Even if we, as when Rome started his museum, for example, lots of people thought the man was crazy, collecting all these crazy things under the cocoa, like going around searching for artifacts, which we didn't value at all. But now we're seeing how valuable it is that he's put them all together in one place. And I don't think it costs him very much for us to have just in a community center a book with the people that lived here and their contributions to the community or the contribution to a school. Like, even if hurricane happened, each school should have this book with the contribution that the former athletes made.
Well, yeah. Well, that was then. Now we have it now. So then that's why we have to emphasize and take a note that we should not forget.
Lest we forget, yes. So we're basically closing. Eugene, I would like Shermian to say a few parting words, express our thanks and so on for having you and Andris on, for having Jerry, Cipriani, and Ova, who had to leave. So Shermian, what are we giving Eugene to go with?
First of all, I want to say thank you for being on this show today, because your creativity and first of all, your charm and your demeanor. You're such a kind, warm person, and you're so easygoing, still so easygoing. We've learned a lot of lessons from you. Your creativity, creating your own spikes, in spite of all that you still did not see those as setbacks for you. In fact, they propelled you to be the athlete that you were. And yes, we know you could have gone further had you had more, but we thank you for all that you've given us. In fact, now we can still talk about you. You still have records and you still contribute to Grenada. We would like someday to formally do this in a setting where we can drop a curtain and say, this is the wall we have in honor of all that you've done. But and you didn't just go on. After leaving school, you went on to serve in protecting Grenadians, and we want to thank you for that too. And so for that, Eugene, we really thank you. We're grateful for your person and for all the other lessons we've learned from you today. We appreciate you and thank you. And Andris, we thank you so much, and we're learning from you that in spite of what your shortcomings may be, you should continue. Even if you think and that our minds will determine how far we can go. Whether or not we have limitations with spikes or no spikes, we should persevere regardless. Let the end of the chips fall where they may, but we persevere and use the lemons we have to make lemonade in spite of whatever else may be our shortcomings. Thank you so much.
And I would say in defense of Andris, we didn't know how to make lemonades in those days. So Cipriani is back, and Cipriani, we're just warming, partying, and Karen Baptist is just logging in. So, Cipriani, we're wrapping up, and we're just saying thank you to Eugene for his contribution and the records he set and still holding, representing Grenada at different levels. Personally, I call this climbing ladders. We climbed ladders through the athletic world with Eugene, because he went from grassroots, and in Jerry talking about setting up national and local and national, but I also think grassroots, because I think our village should also recognize what the people that made the contribution.
Yeah. So
Cipriani, we're wrapping up. What would you like to give away? What would you like to give Eugene and Andris as athletes, your fellow S.A.A.S schoolmates? You're muted still. Unmute.
Yeah, we good now. Yeah. Yeah, I would like to thank you, especially for cultivating that type of idea to bring Eugene and Livingston and the other guys together for the great contribution they have for our country in terms of athletics, that's a good idea for you, what you come across with, and we could take it a lot further than that level, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
I also should say thank to you and everyone for inviting me to come on to the program. We've been chatting, and because I have not seen Andris in many years to talk with you. You understand? Then you brought up
I
the
know.
memories of everyone else. So then we know that you keep seeing, you know, and
Yeah.
to show that, you know, no matter what we do, each one, your support from school, the school friends, that we're still today alive and we support each other for the development, not only for ourselves, but for everyone else around.
Thank you. And soon, so Cipriani and Jerry and Shamian and I are from the same area. Andris is on
Ladig. Don't say the
Ladig.
same area. Say Ladig.
Ladig.
Said Ladig, okay? Ladig Beverland.
Eugene
Yeah.
from Grenville Town,
Grenville.
or the Lane. And we are going to be doing one coming up with Grenville athletes because we have special memories of that too. And then we're going to, hopefully I cap it off with Ladig. So I'm going to have the Ladig marathoners, the Ladig athletes, the Ladig.
Yeah, the Ladig marathoners will be special.
Yeah, you gotta get car on the Zoom, you know.
That's what I'm telling
I
you.
was
We
a
got
very
to
good
get the
runner, you
Ladig
know.
to be a special. You know, everyone just to bring that self of unity, that community that we all love and respect each other. We will develop so that we will, but in that effort that we will get creativity.
Absolutely,
You know?
because Ladig, we had Wizard, we had
Oh man,
Wanderer who won World Road Match in the 50s. Ladig, we're diverse, and we had a club there called LCYC, Ladig Colts Youth Club, that was a community nursery. We developed.
But not only that, you know, they said you guys also have X too, so.
We have whom?
X. Malcolm X.
Oh,
Malcolm X, yes.
Oh.
Yes, we have X.
Yes.
Oh, is Ladig his mom was from?
His mom is from,
Ladig?
Ladig, yeah.
Yeah. Ladig has lots.
Louise Little, the last name was, I think. O.E.C.S, the O.E.C.S family.
Not at the time, I think her maiden name was, but
you guys had everybody, so.
We had everybody. We have the priest. We have Jerry's uncle. We have
the marathoner.
We have, Jerry's uncle. Another uncle is a pastor. We got 2 churches, actually 3 now or 4. So Ladig is going to end it all, but we have to recognize all the people that made contributions to locally.
Nationally,
on the parish level, on the national level, and on the international level. And that's what the show's about, is bringing back the spirit, what we felt then, is trying to make sure it is there for prosperity. So it's going to be there for the future, for your children and your grandchildren and so on. And Eugene, I really thank you for going from all the way. And I have to say before I leave, I'm bringing you greetings from somebody you went to school and sat close to. I'm not going to call name because the person said I'm shy. He will know who he's talking about. It's a guy. He had a nickname, Redman. You sat side by side all the way up through school, but he wouldn't appear here because he's bashful.
Tell Krista say hi.
You weren't supposed to call names.
You don't have to be shy when we're on that program. We all are one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, everyone used to be good cricketers, and you know.
Right.
We just have, so next time when everyone coming, we have to come together and then make it nice, you know.
Yeah.
So we should have more programs and more regular too, not every few weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
So can I recognize Karen Baptist? She's muted, and I would like to hear what she has to say, even if we're wrapping up. Karen is a SAASS athlete, was a SAASS athlete as well, St. Andrews Anglican.
She's the one that told me about the program, actually. She sent me the link and told me about the whole thing.
So you see how it is now? We got to link up everybody.
Yeah. And Karen is, I would think, is a relative. She was a Sensier. So she's related to us on the Sensier side. But for some reason, her mic's muted, and I don't think she knows that. So anyway, but thank her for... Oh, you're unmuted now, Karen?
I'm here. Hi, everybody.
Welcome.
Hi.
Close it, but welcome.
Sorry I'm late. I'm at work.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us.
Upstairs.
So Karen, we're just wrapping up. So do you want to say two quick words to Andris, Eugene? We have Cipriani from class,
I don't know.
Jerry Hopkins, who was from St. David's Anglican, but RC.
You turn them off.
Well, they are the icons. They are the superstars.
Huh?
So what do you want to say?
I'm gonna Zoom.
It was just a great pleasure being part of the team, even though I did not do as much as they did. But you bringing back all the memories from high school, it really brought back all this, a great rush. All the excitement came back. Trying to remember sitting in the bleachers or just being in the park with the guys. It was just awesome.
Awesome. So thank you for being here. It's better to be late, they say, than never. Eugene, do you want to leave us all with anything before I give you my final thanks?
I want to say thanks for having me on the program. And, you know, as we discuss this afternoon, I'm glad to meet and we see other people that know that I wouldn't have heard from Cipriani for many years, then Redman. So we know that we could, the more we keep digging, the more we're going to unearth. And then that's where we come to the fact that, you know, we'll get more information. So then our archives will grow and everyone will benefit and know of the information from our kids so we could pass it on.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for having me and thanks for inviting me into your program.
You're very welcome. I'm very happy you agreed. And thanks for being such a great advocate for the other athletes. It's not just, and I will say, and I hope this doesn't offend anybody, because you're so reserved, you're a very quiet fellow, and most people seem to think that you're selfish. And I don't find that to be true at all, because the moment I start speaking to you, you start telling me about other people I should include and you would like to see get recognized. So I really appreciate your advocacy, even if you're doing it in your own quiet way, and not everybody will know that. But I want people to know that you're a cool guy. You're actually a nice guy and you think about other people. And I know you're very religious. We didn't get to talk about that. Or you're very spiritual and you have a special relationship with your family, because we didn't get to talk about that either. You're in a family of girls. You're the only boy among 4 girls?
6.
6?
Yeah.
Wow, you're lucky guy.
3 girls, there's me, there's 3 girls.
Wow.
Right. You're in the middle.
Yeah.
Well, your mom must have been really excited when she had this one boy after 3 girls.
Well, I guess that would be, you know.
All right. So Karen, nice to see you. I had to mute you a bit because you were kind of noisy, so you can unmute yourself. But we're just we're closing up now. Cipriani, I muted you too as well. And I'm just going to wrap up by saying thank you to Eugene for the many ladders. Thank you for the SAASS ladies who selflessly, even if they were athletes, didn't fight. As you would find today, maybe women would fight for more of a spot and say, I want equal time and so on. But they just went in, supported the men, made sure the men had the energy. They gave the energy, their songs, their spirit to the male athletes, because generally we paid more attention to male athletes back then. And those were the last races of the day. So maybe that's why it meant so much to us, because you let us go home with a high. We went home on a high. So thank you for this, and thank you for introducing me to all the athletes and giving us an opportunity to get into your world a little and to understand you a bit more, and for the contributions you made on every level. I am going to say goodbye now. If anybody has something finally to say, let me know. We're just saying goodbye. Thank you
thank you for having me.
And to the viewers out there, thank you for tuning in with us. And we hope to bring you more good shows, highlighting and recognizing the people that developed our community and helped create this sensational Grenada we know. Have a good
Thank
evening.
you.
Yeah, Dion, before we leave, what
Yes.
about a reunion in Grenada?
A reunion of athletes?
Nah, everybody who would like to know, everybody's scattered, you know, like you in Canada, I'm in America,
We working in
Licorice is
something.
in Canada, New York, you know.
My sister's champion is working on something for the 50th anniversary of
Don't say, don't say.
okay. So in time everybody will get the invites. So we're working on something big to bring back that spirit, that good feeling.
Sarah.
Yeah,
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.